Grab your churros and grab your fried ice cream, because in this week's terrifying episode, we're heading down to the Carnival. That's right, author David Lapham, the man behind Ferals and Cross Psychopath, will today lead us directly into a twisted house of mirrors, where at every turn we're forced to confront the clowns we see in front of us. And along the way, we'll also discover just what happens when you mix clowns and cross together. So be warned, all that and more will be found in today's disturbing tale. What's up guys, I'm your host Juan, and today we'll be going over Crossed Yellowbelly. Yellowbelly here is an arc from the Badlands anthology series, specifically issues number 10 through 13, collected here in this volume. I love this cover for some reason. Anyway, as I said earlier, today's story was written by Crossed veteran David Lapham, and it features art by the OG, Jacen Burrows. But before we get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel in order to stay in the loop with all the latest videos. But enough with all that, let's jump right in. Our story opens on a high school graduation ceremony taking place on a calm, sunny day. And with his arms crossed, pouting in the back, is our protagonist, Edmund Wickenthorp, who, yes, does kind of look like Paul Dano. In any event, Edmund here is musing about his high school experience and his social life. Apparently, he is universally known by his classmates as Yellowbelly. And this is the slightly confusing bit, because Yellowbelly means coward, and Edmund is indeed a coward, but everyone started calling him that name after he peed his pants in the 6th grade, which, gave him a yellow belly. Whatever the case, Edmund gives us a quick rundown of some of his classmates. There's Hank Smith, the star quarterback and coolest kid in school. And there's a big guy named Sweeney, who is the leader of the redneck truck kids. Also notable is the prom queen, Katie Weiner. However, the girl most important to Edmund, and the one who has his heart, is a brunette gal named Betty Ford. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Yeah, Edmund is deeply in love with her. Unfortunately for him, though, she barely knows he exists. They've only ever spoken once, and that was after Edmund accidentally bumped into her one day, knocking the books out of her hands. Edmund scrambled to pick them up for her, and she sternly told him to watch where the fuck he's going before walking off disgusted that Yellowbelly touched her. Edmund didn't care, though. He was in high heaven, because for a quarter of a second, Betty's boob brushed against his arm, a deeply cherished memory for him, and he plays around with the idea of getting a tattoo over the area to commemorate the great event. Yeah, this kid's a complete fucking dumbass. Don't bother trying to make sense of his behavior or his thinking patterns from the rest of the story. In any event, after graduation, instead of attending any fun parties or anything, Edmund, his normie parents, and his little brother hit up the local Golden Corral for some beef Wellington. And at the restaurant, as a gift, Edmund's parents add him to the insurance plan, meaning he can now drive the family car. Well, only if his parents are present along with him at the time. Damn, this shit's getting kind of depressing. Whatever the case, on the drive back home, they see a sign advertising the arrival of a traveling circus, which is making its first stop in a town about 20 miles away. So the next night, Edmund, his dad, and his younger brother decide to go check it out. Apparently, it is kind of a Wickenthorp family tradition to go to the circus together every year. And it looks like fun, and laughter fills the air as Edmund's family weaves through crowds in brightly colored tents. As they are doing so, a showman in a booming voice promotes his carny freaks. There is a strong man, a sword eater, a cyclops, and a black guy who the showman calls a natural-born half-man. Hey, buddy. Pretty sure we stopped doing that fraction stuff after the Civil War. On another note, Edmund's little brother stops and points out a sign for a show he really wants to see. It's for the circus geek, who, according to the advertisement, is going to eat live animals in front of the audience. Edmund says, absolutely not. But after his own little bro mutters under his breath, Yellowbelly, Edmund sucks it up and goes inside. And so we see the geek, who looks like Craven Hunter on meth. And he does his thing, battling a rattlesnake inside the cage before chomping on it to the astonished gasps of the crowd. But don't worry though, as with many circus and magician acts, the stunt was really just a sleight of hand. The geek had actually cut the serpent with a small knife and only pretended to bite it. However, afterwards, as we see behind the curtain, the stage manager and the geek are arguing because the bosses want the performer to actually bite it for realsies. And they're even thinking about firing the geek. But the conversation is interrupted as the curtain opens and a lone, scraggly-looking figure drifts into the room. The geek thinks it must be his replacement, but then the stranger walks up to the stage manager and sinks his teeth into the man's neck. And this freak, he has the unmistakable, grotesque rash on his face. He is infected, and he is crossed. Meanwhile, as this is going on, Edmund and his family are busy, enthralled watching the main circus performance. There are clowns, tigers, and great feats of acrobatics. However, while the crowd is captivated by the spectacles, Edmund is completely entranced by something else. The ass of a woman performing horse tricks. But nevertheless, he is snapped out of it by the sound of panicked screams ringing through the stadium. You see, several of the carnival performers have become crossed, and they're now grabbing and mutilating random people. Everyone fucking floors it out of there as fast as they can, and Edmund's dad leads his two sons through the disarray to the best of his ability. The entire carnival has erupted into utter chaos as the crossed, with rotting grins on their faces, run through the place, bashing people's heads in with hammers and dismembering them with axes, among other things. Edmund's father notices a crossed clown is onto them, and so he hides his sons in 2 wooden barrels. He tells them that he loves them, and he tells them to stay silent before he grabs a wooden bat and starts laying into the clown. Edmund watches his dad through a hole in the barrel in awe, as his old man has always been a rather meek and mild-mannered guy who never really raised his voice. Sadly, though, despite getting the upper hand on the crossed clown, Edmund's dad is tackled by 2 more of them, and they completely overpower him. They rip off his clothes, stomp on his genitals, and then take turns raping him. And after the assault is over, Edmund's father sits up and rigidly turns toward the barrels, now having become infected. Edmund can't breathe and completely freezes in fear as his dad staggers over to the barrels. Edmund listens as the other barrel next to him is opened, and he hears his little brother beg their dad to stop taking his pants off. Edmund is now convulsing as tears, sweat, and drool drip down his face, a face that is suspended in the look of visceral horror. As for Edmund, well, he winds up peeing his pants and falling asleep, which is basically his coping mechanism. He wakes up a couple hours later, uncertain as to how he's still alive. He gets out of his barrel and surveys the absolute carnage around him. The smell of blood and smoke pierces Edmund's nose. Bodies and body parts are strewn out everywhere, including that of his now deceased father and brother. But not only that, Edmund also sees that horse lady from before, now crossed, and having sex on a pile of corpses, and he thinks to himself, okay, that's kinda hot, not gonna lie. Before sprinting off to the parking lot to find his car, he drives home as fast as he can, and when he gets inside, Edmund rushes right past his mother, completely ignoring her questions as to where his dad and brother are. He dashes into his room, locks the door, hides in the closet, and falls asleep once again. And with that, Edmund Wickenthorp, the lone survivor of the Carnival massacre, does what he does best. Absolutely fucking nothing. Eventually, Edmund wakes up again, and he speaks to the sheriff, who questions him on what he claims he saw. In Edmund's eyes, there was basically a geek uprising, and they started eating people. So, needless to say, to everyone who actually wasn't there, the story sounds pretty fake and unhinged. Edmund's mother doesn't want to believe her son, and she slaps him across the face, demanding that he tell her that he's lying. Edmund can't say anything, though, because he's not. And as the night becomes day, we see the carnival clowns truly become a traveling circus as they begin driving off in pursuit of new places to perform their sick act. The first place they reach is a trailer park on the edge of town, and they eagerly salivate at all the fun they're about to have. Meanwhile, in one of the trailers is Sweeney, the leader of the redneck clique at Edmund's school. Sweeney is kicked awake by his drunk, deadbeat dad, who demands to know where the car keys are so he can go to work, despite being laid off 2 years ago. Sweeney ain't having none of that shit, though, and he pulls a shotgun out on his father, who angrily asks him who he thinks pays the bills around here. Sweeney says, the disability checks? And his dad is about to beat him with his alcohol bottle when a freshly minted crossed woman bursts into the trailer. She shoves a spade through Sweeney's dad's neck, and Sweeney, in turn, blows her face off with his gun. He rushes outside in bewilderment, aghast at the general state of unrest around him. All that can be said is that the scope of the outbreak is rapidly spreading, and shortly thereafter, we see a truck of crossed clowns being let out in the neighborhood. Edmund's neighborhood. Only Edmund doesn't know about it yet, as inside his house, he is having a cry-therapy session with his mom. In fact, she is the first one to notice a clown pressed up against the window pane, staring into the house, looking for people.
Oh, hell no.
She tells Edmund to go hide in the closet, and then, all of a sudden, the window shatters and 3 crossed goons force their way inside. And so Edmund falls asleep again, as his mother is raped and killed on the dining room table. Hours later, Edmund is shaken awake by Hank Smith, the football star, and all his buddies who were at his house because they heard from the sheriff that Edmund knew what was going on. Edmund explains to them that it's the circus geeks killing everyone, and how it seems contagious, and so the footballers take Edmund with them as they drive around shooting crossed. Eventually, at an intersection, Hank and Edmund's vehicle comes across Sweeney and his boys, and they all decide to form one massive group together. They meet in a local hunting shop and begin giving speeches, hyping each other up and planning their offensive to take back their town. As the rest of the kids begin arming themselves, Edmund hears someone calling his name, and so he turns around to see Betty Ford sheepishly moving toward him. She tells Edmund that she heard that he had faced the monsters and survived before, and that she's very scared. Edmund grabs her shoulder and tells her that it's alright. They're together now, and she's safe. But those words have barely left his lips before a fucking semi-truck rams through the building like the ending of Final Destination 4. Anyway, so a lot of the survivors are flattened and crushed, and then a bunch of clowns descend upon the scene. Okay, what Joker left their location on again? Fucking jackass. All the same, as the cross start to quickly overpower the remaining characters, Edmund sees that the tides are turning and decides to bail, abandoning Betty without so much a second thought. Unfortunately for Edmund, though, Sweeney is blocking the exit door, and Sweeney starts swinging a hatchet at Edmund, even after the latter assures him that he is human. Sweeney says that Yellow Belly is going to die like a man, but Edmund blasts him in the chest with a shotgun. And so the issue ends with Edmund sprinting off into the wild unknown, away from the remnants of another gruesome massacre that's behind him.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. While I have you, I might as well let you know about my YouTube membership program. You see, for just $1.99 a month, you can support the channel and get access to a special loyalty badge next to your name, videos a bit early, and a set of exclusive community emojis. I quite like the smiling cross guy one, personally. Just a little goes a long way in helping create more videos, so I thank you for the consideration. But enough with that, let's get back to the video.
Alright, we're back. And the next issue opens with Edmund dreaming of flying into girls' butts. I'm not going to show you that one, you'll just have to take my word for it. I guess that means he fell asleep again, because he really didn't even make it that far away, as he next turns around and goes back to the hunting shop and surveys the damages done there. Edmund ends up lifting someone's car keys off their dead body, and he speeds off. You see, by this point, he's lost his mother, father, brother, neighbors, and classmates, and now he's ready to do what he should have done the first time. Edmund is going to warn as many people as he can about the bloodthirsty maniacs. He's going to make them believe him. It's all he has left. And so, Edmund zooms over to a town about 40 miles away, where he parks on the main street. Edmund gets out, and he stands in the middle of the sidewalk all jittery. And then, he accosts a random couple walking by, shakily telling them that the geeks are coming to eat everyone. Everyone just brushes him off, though, as he sounds kind of schizo. But Edmund refuses to give up, so he decides to seek out a group of people he knows will for sure take him seriously. which turns out to be some bikers hanging out at a bar, I guess. And it works out because, for whatever reason, the leader of the biker club, a guy named Ricky, decides to go check out the carnival Edmund told him about, and they all confirm the lad's telling the truth. And after Edmund conveys to him that whatever their disease is spreading, Ricky says they're gonna need a lot of backup. So, Ricky calls every single biker gang from the surrounding counties, and they all team up and prepare to initiate warfare against the Crossed. Merriment and camaraderie fills the air. Edmund, for his part, has alcohol and weed for the first time. Oh, and he also loses his virginity to a biker chick named Nicole. Nicole's boyfriend, Nico, isn't too pleased with this, and he punches Edmund in the face, yelling that only screaming skulls get to tap that. Edmund looks at the man, and because he's high as fuck, he starts laughing, which prompts Nico to look at him and say, "I guess we'll have to make you a member then." So with that, Edmund becomes a member of the Screaming Skulls, getting a tattoo and the whole shebang. Anyway, Edmund and the bikers ride off to confront the Crossed, who they know are coming, and thus the battle begins, with carnies and bikers shooting each other from moving vehicles. Amid the commotion, Edmund gets knocked off the bike he was riding on, rolling into a gutter away from the main front. He watches the battlefield from the tree line, too scared to re-enter the fray, despite him knowing that it's the right thing to do. In fact, Edmund is pretty much content to just wait everything out, that is, until he sees Nicole being chased by a clown who has his pants down. Edmund finally musters the courage to grab the clown's attention, and guess what? He recognizes the bastard. The clown was a classmate of his, who, then with his raspy voice, scrouches out his infamous sobriquet, Yellow Belly. So Edmund goes ahead and blasts half his head off. Edmund is extremely proud of himself for the first time in his life, and he tries to check on Nicole, desperately hoping that she's still alive. But then, all of a sudden, Nicole abruptly sits up, shrieking, and Edmund fires on her in a panic. Nicole's brains splatter across the pavement, and Edmund assumes the child's pose. Everything feels numb and unreal for the lad, and he is about to shoot himself, finger on the trigger and all, when he hears a flat voice behind him say, "Aw, you were doing so well. Don't fuck it up now." It's Harold Lore, from Crossed Psychopath. Remember? That terminal weirdo who raped and killed everyone he came across? The one who acted exactly like the Crossed, despite not being so? Yeah, well, he's here now. And he tells Edmund that he's putting together a team of remarkable people. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. But what Harold does tell Edmund is that he's been driving around and watching people all day, and that Edmund is the only smart person he's come across. Harold sits down next to Edmund and explains to him that the world is pretty much ending, and that a lot of people haven't really caught on to that fact yet. Whatever the Crossed are, they really can't be beaten, and it's a fool's errand to try and stop them. But that's alright, Harold says, because one day the Crossed will end too. And so, in the end, the world will ultimately belong to the hiders, to the schemers, and to the cowards. But Harold informs Edmund that he has a big problem facing him. It looks like the bikers will prevail in this battle, which means that soon they'll find Edmund and demand to know why he shot one of their women. Edmund starts hyperventilating, and he anxiously asks Harold what he should do. Should he bury Nicole? No, replies Harold. He tells Edmund that he has to have sex with her. So, after the two are done taking turns doing necrophilia, Harold's like, that wasn't so bad, eh? And Edmund starts vomiting. He looks up at Harold and asks why they had to do that, to which Harold responds that they actually didn't, at least not to cover up the killing of Nicole. All Edmund needs to do for that is to stage the bodies so it looks like she was attacked, and to shoot her face off so the bikers can't see that she had no rash. And with that, Harold waltzes off back to his party store van, where, in the passenger seat, sits a woman, perfectly still, looking like she has shell shock. And if you're interested in finding out what that's all about, you can watch my Crossed Psychopath video after this one. In any case, Edmund decides to do what he was told. He shoots Nicole again and drapes the clown's body over hers. All in good timing too, because despite some initial setbacks and heavy casualties, the bikers do manage to turn the tide and walk away victorious. They pick Edmund up and throw a huge celebration for their triumph. The bikers bought the whole Nicole cover story, and they praise Edmund as a hero, not knowing that he bailed on the fight from the start. Next, Ricky's girl, a woman named Dana, grabs Edmund's hand and leads him to a private room in the back of the building. She starts slowly taking off her clothes, explaining to Edmund that she's never had a hero before. But Edmund is unable to enjoy this, as he is ashamed and disgusted with himself for all the things that he's done. And, well, he breaks. Edmund spills out everything to Dana. He discloses to her how he peed his pants in 6th grade, how his name is Yellow Belly, how he thought Nicole was a geek and accidentally killed her, and then, to Donna's absolute horror, Edmund even reveals that he had sex with Nicole's body afterwards. Dana tries to run, and Edmund panics, grabbing her and then ultimately gagging and tying her up. Then, for whatever reason, Edmund thinks it's a good idea to go outside and confess everything to the bikers as well. Needless to say, that doesn't exactly go over well, and the bikers are about to draw and quarter Edmund when a line of cop cars starts steaming toward them. But something's off, because you see, the cops, well, they're all crossed, and so absolute pandemonium begins, and several of the bikers get thrown around and mangled. Edmund takes advantage of the chaos and manages to unbind himself, and something's finally clicked for the lad. And he decides that he's no longer Yellow Belly anymore. And so Edmund rushes back inside the building in order to rescue Dana, something his past self never would have thought of or dared. And he's very successful. He shoots up Cross like an action hero. But then he hears something that stops him dead in his tracks. It's a familiar voice from a familiar face that's taunting him. It's Betty Ford, now naked and crossed. In a way, Edmund's old crush here is a kind of final symbol of his past life and identity. And now, Edmund decides that it's time to throw the past away. And so he calls Betty a stuck-up bitch and shoots out her bike, killing her. You see, Edmund has convinced himself that he's deeply in love with Dana, now for some reason, and so he grips her hand and they run off together. That night, the two decide to take cover and sleep deep in the woods. Edmund attempts to apologize to Dana, but she cuts him off, affirming that Edmund became a hero today, her hero, and so they have sex under the stars. Afterwards, Edmund gazes up at the night sky and reflects on how, for the first time in his life, things feel right. He's no longer a pathetic loser. He's a somebody now. He's finally become a man. And with that thought, Edmund dozes off. Dana realizes this, and she watches Edmund for a moment before slowly raising a large rock over Edmund's head, which she then bashes down with full force upon his face. Teeth and blood spurt out everywhere as the cartilage and bone in Edmund's face are completely crushed. Dana cries out that Edmund is nothing but a yellow-bellied fucking coward. And with that, our story is brought to a shocking conclusion. So that was Crossed Yellow Belly. Kind of a mean-spirited ending, I guess, which I'm guessing most of you absolutely hated. And I guess that's as good a segue as any for discussing my overall thoughts on this story. Right, so I freely acknowledge that this wasn't a groundbreaking or profound cross tale, but nevertheless, I do have a soft spot for it. Probably just because I find the story pretty funny. Obviously, I don't mean like people being raped to death is humorous. No, rather, Yellow Belly has an atmosphere that kind of revels in being incredibly over the top and ridiculous, which I find kind of amusing. Yes, David Lapham's story is pretty overtly nihilistic and mean, and it doesn't have a satisfying narrative arc, but I think that's sort of the point. Really, it's just kind of fucking stupid. I feel like the entire premise for the book was born out of the idea of mixing Crossed and clowns together, and then they just took it from there, just being as absurd as possible. And I had a good enough time. So I'm not going to feign outrage or do any other performative stuff or whatever. But that's just me, in my opinion. And you are more than welcome to disagree. And feel free to leave your own thoughts on the story in the comment section down below. I do engage with most of what you guys post down there. But anyway, in terms of the art, well, Jacen Burrows brings his A game here. The backgrounds are colorful and teeming with detail, and the kills are as brutal as ever. Absolutely excellent stuff, in other words. But I won't go on for much longer. I won't talk your ear off today. I guess I'll just briefly divulge my plans moving forward. So next time we return to the Cross series, I'm guessing we're not going to do it linearly. I think we're going to probably jump around to some of the more notable story arcs first. Because believe it or not, there are some of them that I don't really like that much. But that about does it. Once again, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And, well, until next time, I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one.